Elspeth here from Vegan News Daily, and today I'm going to show you how I make my whole festive roasted cauliflower. So I have a couple of cauliflowers here to show you. I just wanted to show you that cauliflower does come in a bright purple color, and it also comes in a sort of a bright yellow-orange color as well. But I'm just going to work with a regular white cauliflower. So this is a whole head of cauliflower. It's approximately 2.5 pounds, which is how I wrote the recipe. So I'm going to just cut off a little bit of the stalk underneath here and some of the leaves. I don't need to cut off all of the leaves because these are very edible and actually quite delicious. So I'll just set these aside in my compost. And I am going to make a lovely sort of tahini spicy crust for this cauliflower. And then we're also going to make a tahini dressing and garnish it with pomegranates and radishes. So I have my baking dish here. And in my baking dish, I have just a little rack. This is actually from my Instant Pot. And I'm just going to place it in my baking dish. And I'm going to pour a little water into the base of this as well. So when I do roast my cauliflower, I don't want the cauliflower sitting in the water. It's going to be sitting on this rack. So to make the sauce for this, I'm just going to use a very small blender bowl and get all the ingredients together. So first I'm going to use some tahini. Tahini is wonderful, just ground up sesame seeds. And sesame seeds have a whole lot of wonderful properties to them. High in calcium, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer. So this is also a great source of a healthy fat. So this is just straight sesame seeds ground up, and that's all tahini is. So. And then the second ingredient that goes in here is, well, I could use miso or I could use a salt-free seasoning. The salt-free seasoning that I love is Benson's Table Tasty. Today I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use miso. So put some of the miso in. And this miso is made from organic soybeans. You can get organic chickpeas rather. You can get miso made from soybeans and barley and other things too. I'm also going to put a little bit of apple cider vinegar. And I'm going to use a date. I could use some date syrup, which would be fine, but I'm going to use a whole medjool date. So the thing with dates is that you always have to remember to take out the pit. Otherwise it ruins the whole recipe, as I always say. So I've got my date in here. And the flavoring that I'm going to use is smoked paprika and cumin. So those two go in. And I'm going to use some lemon juice. I love my citrus press here. I always tell people it's a great gift to give a hostess or anyone who loves to cook in your life. So squeeze that in. And then I'm just going to blend this up into a nice paste, and we'll get that on the cauliflower. Should be good. So when I open up the blender, I'll have a nice paste to work with, and I did put some gloves on because I want to try and get as much of these delicious flavors into all the nooks and crannies on this cauliflower. So I'm just going to scoop this out with my fingers, no spoon required, and I'm going to smear this all over the cauliflower and get a nice coating. And then once I've got this cauliflower head of cauliflower coated with all of this lovely flavoring, I'm going to put this into the oven and I'm going to bake it or roast it for probably about 55 minutes or so. I like to check on it And then if it needs another, 5 minutes or so, I'll let it go another 5 minutes. And then I can also just leave it in the heat of the residual heat of the oven to soften up. Different people like different sort of textures on their cauliflower. You might want it a little more crunchy or a little softer, but that's up to you. So I like to just check on it after about 55 minutes. I use a skewer to poke into it to see how tender it is, and then I decide from there whether I want it to roast a little bit longer. So I'm going to pop this in the oven, uncovered. Set my timer, and then we'll come back and check on it. So while the cauliflower is roasting in the oven, I'm going to get going on making the tahini dressing that goes along with it. So in another small blender bowl, I'm going to use some tahini, and I just wanted to point out different types of tahini are sort of thicker than each other. So some of them are thinner, some of them are thicker, and that's going to affect the consistency of your tahini dressing. So just be aware of that. The consistency that you want in the end is that of like a nice sort of thick yogurt. So I find like with this Trader Joe's tahini, it's a little thinner than the artisanal raw tahini. So just be aware of that when you're adding the water to this recipe, because you might want to add a little bit at a time so that it doesn't get too thin and too runny. The next ingredient I'm going to use is the water. So I'm going to add most of the water, not all of it. I can always add a little bit more once I see how it blends up. I'm also going to add a little date syrup. This is going to add some sweetness to the dressing. You could use some maple syrup, which would keep the dressing a little lighter, but I like date syrup for sweetener. I've got some garlic cloves here. No need to mince them up because they are going to be ground up in the blender. I'm going to set aside the fresh dill for now because I don't want to blend the dill in with the dressing, because otherwise it'll end up being a light green dressing. And I want to keep this nice and white with a few flecks of the dill in it. So I'm going to use some lemon juice. So cut a little bit of lemon here. That'll give it a nice brightness. And I'm going to use some coconut aminos. Coconut aminos does have sodium in it. It's a low sodium product. I could also go ahead and just use my Benson's Table Tasty salt-free seasoning. But I like this coconut aminos. So a little bit of that. And I'm going to blend this all up. Sticking to the side of this blender bowl, so I'm just going to turn it over, and this will also give me an opportunity to see if I think I need to add that extra water to the recipe. So yeah, I think I will. I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of the water, and this will blend up nicely, so it's not too thin. Oops, I forgot to scrape down the side here, which is why I opened it in the first place. So just scrape down the sides, make sure that all the tahini is going to get blended in. Should be good. So at this point I'll stir in the dill, but I'm going to hang on to it in this blender bowl because I'll pour some over the cauliflower at the end before I pour it into the serving bowl. So I'm just going to add this in here. And then I'm going to scoop out as much as I can from the lid here too. I don't want to let any of this beautiful tahini dressing, I don't want any of it to get away. Okay, I'll mix it in there. And then that's it for the tahini dressing part of it. I also wanted to show you all of the items that I have prepared in advance for garnishing. So I have some pomegranate jewels here, or pomegranate averols as they're called. These are beautiful sparkly little jewels that are going to look great on top of the cauliflower. And I do have a video on our YouTube channel, on the Vegan News Daily YouTube channel. If you look for the YouTube video called How to Deseed a Pomegranate, you'll see exactly how I do it. Quick and easy. I've got some chopped up parsley here, and I have some sprigs of dill, and I have a bunch of radishes as well. So some radishes I've left whole if they're small. I've sliced a bunch of them and I've quartered a few others. So these are going to look like baubles over the top, Christmas baubles over the top of the cauliflower. It'll look wonderful and festive. So we'll check on the cauliflower in just a moment. It's got a little bit of time left to go, and I'll show you how I decorate it at the end. So the cauliflower is roasted and ready to come out of the oven, and I'm going to show you how I decorate it for serving. So here it is. I'm going to use a black serving platter to serve this. You can also use a white one, but I just find that it really pops nicely on a black platter. So I use a skewer just to check the doneness. So I like my cauliflower a little bit crunchy in the center and soft on the outside, and that's pretty much how it is. So I'm just going to use chef hands here. Yes, it is hot, and I'm going to transfer this cauliflower onto my serving platter. And next, I'm going to take the tahini dressing that we made, and I'm going to drizzle a little bit over the top of the cauliflower. So you can see it's just going to run down the sides a little bit, and I'll encourage it if it doesn't. So that looks really pretty. And then I always serve a little bit extra of the tahini dressing on the side, in a little bowl on the side. If I had a whole lot of extra dressing left over, what I like to do with it is pour it into a little mason jar and then just store it in the refrigerator. And then I can just use it for leftover cauliflower, or for salads, or on top of potatoes, or a number of different ways I could use it. So this is the kind of jar that I would store any additional. So I could garnish the top of the extra sauce with a little bit of dill sprigs, since it has some dill in it. And then I'm going to take the, actually I'm going to drizzle a little bit more on this side over here. It doesn't look like it has quite enough on it. So I want to drizzle it down all the way onto the platter as well. Just looks pretty. So then I'll take my pomegranate averols and I'll just sprinkle a whole bunch on top, and then I could also sprinkle a few of them around the side. Next up, I'm going to take some of my larger pieces of radishes and just pop them around the edge, and then I'll drizzle a few of the slices over the top. They're probably all going to end up around the side of the radish. I mean, they're around the side of the cauliflower, but they just look really pretty and festive, and like little Christmas ornaments. And then I think we need a little more greenery here. So I've got all my chopped parsley. So I'll just sprinkle the parsley over the top, and again all over the platter as well. And then I have some nice big sprigs of dill. I absolutely love the smell of dill and the taste of dill. So I'll probably just put a couple of sprigs of dill around the edge. And you can decorate this however you want. And I put my oven's being very noisy. Turn that off. And then I'm just going to maybe put a few more of the extra bright red pomegranate averols. But in the end, you're left with this really fun, festive centerpiece for your holiday table. It's definitely a Christmassy looking dish, but there's no reason why you can't serve this anytime. So if you want to have more fun, fabulous recipes for holidays or every day, hit the subscribe button, and that way you won't miss out on any of our great recipes.